It's because we saw this amazing opportunity in the marketplace to do things faster. And we know that if we can do things faster, we can get the product to you sooner. And if you have the product sooner, you can hit the ground in the marketplace faster, which helps you win faster.
Statistically, about 80% of people, if you respond quickly and rectify the problem, they actually will still consider working with you again.
I'm giving you something that you need, right? At the root of it. You need something, I can give it to you.
It's expectations versus reality, say versus do. That is how you can build trust.
Welcome to the Brand Nerd Podcast. I'm Mitch Metter. Join me as we nerd out over great brands, study the latest business tech, and learn proven strategies from experts and entrepreneurs. Let's get started.
What is up, nerds? Welcome back to the Brand Nerd Podcast, Season 0.
Wow.
Today, we are talking about helping your customers know they can trust you.
Trust.
Trust is a big one. Oh,
Wow. Said
so,
at the same time.
know you, like you, trust you. The previous two episodes are about know you and then like you. So today we're talking about trust you.
So this is the return of the king of our marketing framework, so to speak.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's not the best movie in the trilogy, but it does get the most awards.
Yeah. Facts. All right.
Yeah.
So trust
They
you.
were due at that point. So we're just going to run through some things. I'm going to bounce it off Pete. He's going to add in his color. But it's really important for people to trust you. And that sounds so cliche, but when somebody is inviting you into their home or visiting your local service business, if it's a brick and mortar place, it's a very personal experience. You need to establish trust. And so I'm going to start with what I think is probably the most obvious thing, and that's doing good work.
Underrated.
And so it's easy to say, I should say it's easy to say, maybe harder to do. And to just unpack that a little bit more, you not only need to do good work, but you need to do the work that you say you're going to do. So having a great brand is a lot about expectations versus reality. So what people expect from you, and the reason they expect it is probably because of something that you said. Maybe it's because of something somebody else said to them. And then the occasional person that just has, expectations out of the blue. Yeah. But it's expectations versus reality, say versus do. That is how you can build trust.
I just got a mental picture, and I'm a visual person. So I can see the word say, right? And then on this hand, you have say, and you have do over here.
Yeah.
And every time that you do the thing that you said you were going to do, you were almost putting a piece of thread in between those two words. And the goal is to have those two words be unbreakable from each other. So every time you're doing what you said you were going to do, you're adding another thread connection and another and another and another, to the point where there's so many, and it's just a thick rope at this point, and it's unbreakable, right? So every time you do that and you actually follow through with your brand promise, you are establishing and strengthening what you can deliver on the next project, right? So it's building blocks. I share that to paint this picture of you're building. When you say building trust, it's literally that. It's literally building it, brick by brick, one piece at a time. And as people find you, it's because they heard of someone or they saw a job well done, and they're like, "That's trust built," and it takes time. But you can only do that by doing good work. That's my point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do good work, and do good work means different depending on what your market fit is, what you're saying you do. If you're if your expectations that you set for your customers is that you have the best prices, then they shouldn't necessarily expect for you to be the fastest or the best quality. You've seen the triangle or or the three things.
Good fast
choose
sheet.
one.
Yeah, the good fast sheet. triangle. Yeah.
Yeah, good, fast, cheap. Choose one. So you can have good and fast, but it's not going to be cheap.
Yeah.
You can have
Good and cheap, but it's not going to be fast.
Exactly.
You got it fast and cheap, and
Right.
it's not going to be good.
Yeah, all those things. And so it's important to know where your fit is and then deliver value at that
I love that.
at that point.
I love that because it's so individualistic. It's
Mhm.
but you get to define what that is,
Mhm.
you know, and then you get to promote what that is.
Right.
So even timeliness is great. Like, hey, we're gonna be the fastest to do it. It's like,
Yeah.
awesome. If you're the fastest, and like,
Right.
get it done quick.
Day one, you shouldn't expect to have trust. Trust is earned. You have to earn trust over time. So whether it's a new client, day one with a new client, or day one of a new business, you have to understand that 5 years in, you're going to have a lot more trust build up in your community. People have already maybe seen you around. They're starting to know you. Like more and more people know you exist. And that trust builds over time. And so I want to unpack value just a little bit, because value is this, it's kind of like brand, and then it's hard to like tie down what does value mean. And so let's try to describe what that might be a little bit. Value is doing the little things right that make the experience even better for your customers. So it might be the way that they onboard with you.
So good. Yeah.
Like, do you make it really easy to schedule an appointment? Like, there's value in that versus a headache of like, man, I can't get a hold of them. They're not calling me back.
Right.
Those type of things.
When I think of the foundation of that, if you again, I keep coming back to like tearing things down to their core. What are they? And value is, I'm giving you something that you need, right? At the root of it, you need something. I can give it to you. Now, that is the foundation of it, though. Like, that's not necessarily value. In some ways it is, but that is like the starting point of value. Really, value is built on, like you were saying, all of the little things. So like, sure, you can deliver on what I need, but also how are you doing it? When are you doing it? How fast are you doing it? Like, how well are we communicating while you do it? All of those intangibles are things that actually add the highest value and what keep people coming back. Yeah. So it's not about just doing the job. It's like, yeah.
Another way, another like moment in the customer experience where you might be able to add value would be during the actual job itself. Is there a way for you to add additional value? So instead of just saying, hey, your XYZ is broken, let's say you're out for a service call, and you find an issue with this person's home, and you say, hey, here's the problem I'm seeing. This is what I suggest we do. That's one thing. And they kind of go, I don't know, are they pulling my leg here? Like, is this really something I need to worry about? Or, kind of the next level, let's say you're on the roof or somewhere where they can't see. Take a picture, explain to them where the, take multiple pictures, take a video, explain to them where the issues are. And then, once they agree to the job, then submit to them like the different steps that you took. Okay, let's say you're on the roof, it's flashing around a chimney that's incorrect or it's deteriorating. You can actually like take pictures then of the work that you've done and be like, okay, here's the before, here's the after. These are really simple little things, but it adds value. It builds trust, and they walk away going like, oh man, like, I feel better about the shape of my home because you took the time, and you're 5 minutes, maybe
you're educating them, right? Like, yeah, bro, you're just so much goodness coming out of what you're saying. I went to a dentist once, right? And it was called White Family Dental, not because they only serve white people, because I was there, but that's their last name. Obviously it's a joke, but they had the best dental experience I ever had in my entire life. And I remember I went back to Castle, which is where I was working at the time, and I just kept talking about it. Like, everybody was like, shut up, Pete. Like, you're so annoying. I just kept talking and talking and talking about this experience, because literally from the moment I walked through the door, I was greeted. And mind you, my old dentist was like, they just kind of put me in the chair, did the work. They never really explained anything. Like, literally at White Family Dental, and this is a massive shout out to them. So, whatever, cool. But they took the time to explain every single thing before they put a tool like at one of my teeth or even close to like around like my mouth or whatever. They said, hey, we're going to do here's what we're doing. Here's the tool. Here's what we're doing. We're going to like do this for this reason. And at the end, they showed me before and after picture. It was just crazy, bro. And I left there and I couldn't stop talking about it. I told my wife, I told my mom, I told everybody. And that was a perfect example of like screaming things from the rooftop. When you provide an outstanding service, people won't stop talking about it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was genuine. Like it only hit me afterwards that I was like, had experienced this euphoric sort of like experience with a dental company. I was like, this is a freaking dental company, but I can't stop talking about it because they did everything else around dental work so well.
Yes.
That made it so amazing. And so like you can do that for your local service brand. You can, you can create that type of experience. Start to think of more experiences just than providing a service. How am I walking this person through an experience?
Right. And I guarantee you that dental office is not the most price conscious, it's not the most affordable dental office.
It's not.
Because that wouldn't make as much sense for them.
Right.
If your goal was to be the most affordable dental office, then you probably can't add that much additional value. But if you are able to be that medium to high dental experience, you can add some of these value add things.
Yeah. And a thing that most people don't want to do is go to the dentist.
Yeah.
Most people don't want to do that.
And that leads me to my next point, which is once you've kind of established where you fit, you're starting to build up credibility. It is really important that you turn those experiences into reviews. One of the first steps a company should take is adding just a simple leave a review email into their order of operations. Maybe it's when you send the final invoice. Maybe it's after the service call, within an hour or two after the service call. But this ability to generate reviews that can then also turn into social media content. You can, if you use what's called a reputation manager, software or an app, you can actually get them to leave a review inside of your software and then give them the option to add it to Facebook, Google, any other industry apps that make sense.
Nice.
Like maybe
I didn't know that
Angie's
existed.
List. Yeah. So like it's a one spot where you can do that. And the nice thing about it is if somebody has a bad experience, they're leaving it in your internal spot. You don't prompt them to leave a review in these other places, but you do have an opportunity then to make it right with them.
Come on.
And so it's actually a really good business principle to know when things have gone sideways and to be able to work with those people, because statistically about 80% of people, if you respond quickly and rectify the problem, they actually will still consider working with you again.
Yeah. They don't mind that hiccup. I love that your mindset is like when I heard you say they're essentially leaving a review within the realm of your control to whether or not you can post it or not.
Yeah.
My mind instantly went to, oh man, like awesome. You don't have to post that bad review, which is part of what you were saying.
Yeah,
but the main thing of what you were saying was how you can rectify with them. Obviously not sharing the bad review, but also how can you make it right? And I think that's a really big thing too, is just like having that perspective of, oh, okay, like where did we drop the ball? And then also look at your systems and say, is there anything in our system, in our process that can actually make this better? Or is this just a one-off situation? Because both of those can be true.
Or if you have a particular employee who's consistently getting lower reviews, like then you know where the problem is and where you need to have a conversation, or where you need to take action. There's a lot of different ways to look at that. One way that you can elevate your reviews too is actually to get video testimonials from particular clients. And one way to do that is just to ask them if you can shoot a video. Another way is user-generated content that we've talked about before. The idea of actually having them do a video, especially if they're social media savvy, maybe they have to be the right age, or I shouldn't say age. There's some pretty social media savvy
Old people.
experienced people.
Oh, dude, yeah. I saw the other day. There's this couple on TikTok that they just do trending dances and stuff.
Yeah.
Whatever trends, and they're super old. And like that's what's hilarious about it, because they're trying to do these like
Yeah.
dances and stuff, and they're just like they look like they're about to break,
Yeah.
and people love them. It's just amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
There's this sweet old man that has hit my algorithm, and all he does is makes milkshakes.
Milkshakes.
The milkshake guy?
Yes,
He's in mine too.
dude. He's like Happy Milkshake Monday,
Exactly.
or he does. Yeah, he's
Okay.
he's
All
amazing,
right.
dude. So
Yeah.
wholesome. What do you think about him?
So
Devin?
wholesome. Yeah.
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 He does Milkshake Mondays, and then something Friday floats. He does floats on Fridays.
No floats. I've hit
Yeah.
three of his milkshakes have hit my feed
Okay.
in the past 24 hours.
You wait, you're gonna start getting the floats.
The floats.
And I haven't had a root beer float or anything in so long, but like just the way. And then he goes, now it's time to throw it in the old blender, and his blender's like old
Yeah.
school, and like, oh man.
Yeah.
Shout out to that guy, man.
Yeah.
There's just people who are bringing like slices of nostalgia and like
Yeah,
good vibes on the internet, and
for sure.
it's just a good feeling. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wish he was my grandpa. Hey, Paul, can you make me a milkshake, Paul? Brand.
Yeah. So
Trust.
so user generated content.
Yeah.
If you can find somebody like Milkshake Grandpa
Yep.
to create a review video, these are the types of things that build momentum for your business.
Yeah.
You know, in the same way that we start getting recommended, milkshakes, people in your local area can start getting recommended more and more reviews
Mm-hmm.
of your business. Another thing that's kind of in this same space is demonstrating through your website, through your social media, case studies or project gallery, before and afters.
Sure.
Call it a portfolio, call it whatever you want. Case study typically is a little bit more like technical, and maybe you get into like, if your business involves like specific things, like dentists is a great example, like you can do case studies of, doing clear aligners for clients, or case studies for doing implants, or studies for doing, these different things with great before and after photos, and show how you're changing lives through that. In the same way, if you're doing something like new roofs, which we also mentioned, like that would be more of a project gallery, portfolio type thing, I would imagine. Yeah. You can demonstrate, before and after with the roof. Maybe you have some clients that you do additional exterior work for, windows, shutters, doors, that kind of thing, siding, and really show some awesome transformations before and after. Again, this is about building trust. Right. So when somebody sees what you've done for other people, that gives them trust. That starts to set their expectations that they could do this for you as well.
Yeah. I think also too, like, this is wildly underrated, but lean into the people that you have on your team. I found that a lot of these like brand service providers, you'll have someone on your team who like is interested in helping you take photos, or like even if it's just iPhone photos. Like, again, I'm not saying every business has this person, but the small companies that I have worked for, there's often been someone on that team who has a slight interest in social media, taking photos, or like, who just has an eye for it.
Right.
So like, man, if you have that younger guy on your team, younger girl on your team, and you're like, hey, would you mind just owning this small thing of like taking before and after pictures of all of our projects? Hey, your iPhone shoots in 4K, and like you can do this kind of stuff with like very cost effectively.
Right. That's a great point. And honestly, they don't have to be like, they just have to capture the full image.
Correct. That's totally my point.
And so you can do that for every single job.
Right.
And then on top of that, I would say, choose 4 projects a year that are particularly good projects, whether it's because they're doing, high-end services, or like a bunch of services. We mentioned roofing, like if they're doing a roof, siding, it's going to be an amazing transformation. Right. Maybe that's time to call in the professionals, and get somebody with a legit camera, maybe a drone or something, to do some really awesome before and afters. But that's something you do, like I said, maybe 4 times a year, once a quarter, something like that.
Yeah. You should be particular about what you call a case study.
Exactly.
Right? It shouldn't be everything. It should be like, hey, here are the top 4 to 5 projects that we think really were amazing this year.
I do think it's also important. Some times people get too far in that, like all of their projects are only their most grandiose projects. That can almost be a turnoff for somebody who's just looking for, a smaller project, but you need those smaller projects to keep your calendar full.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to make sure that you are giving some attention to smaller projects, in that even a professional setting, but maybe it's somebody who, if again, I keep going to roofing, but that because that's what's in my head. But let's say it's somebody who has a really nice landscaping or something. So something that is going to really pop on camera, and you can show a before and after of a home that's maybe not like a high-end home, but it's a really well cared for standard home.
Yeah.
And it just kind of gives you a little bit more pop. There's less things to distract you.
Yeah. You could even, I mean, this is very applicable and practical, but you could even have, if you have like our work or a work portion of your website, you could literally say like on the everyday, or like our bread and butter or something, like something, obviously this depends on the brand, but so like something that just speaks to our everyday project. And that's where you have those like kind of before and after photos, really simple, really clean. But then you can say like projects that stood out to us in the last 2 months, or in the last 3 months or something like, and then you have 3 there, and so like you could almost just say exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
And it's not going to offend anyone. Like, I don't think like, hey, here are 3 projects that we really loved working on the last 2 to 3 months. And perhaps even that time frame makes it more attractive because it was recent.
Oh yeah.
Right. Like there's something about them saying, oh, that happened in the last 2 months versus like, oh, that's the work they were doing last year. But what are they doing this year?
That is actually one of the things that ends up happening is people, let's say you go through a website redesign, you get a huge, arsenal of projects for this new redesign so that you have a beefy portfolio. But then once that website launches, nothing changes for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. It's pretty easy to see that these projects are outdated, even if you don't put a date on it. Like you just can tell like things change over time. And if it's in your hometown, you might even know that home.
Right.
And be like, oh yeah, I remember that. That was a while ago though, right?
Right.
You just kind of like, it is very important to keep it up to date. Just like if you have a blog or something like that, like make sure that those posts are, if you haven't posted in 6 months or something, like it's going to feel like, is anybody alive over there? So yeah, I think that's a really, really good thing. So I feel like maybe those are the obvious ones. There's another one though that I think is really important for building trust for a local service brand in particular, and this is getting involved in your community. We might have touched on this before, this idea of, I think a lot of companies when they start doing, volunteering, they start donating, it's very much an after the fact type of campaign or post that they put up. They'll be like, hey, we just spent time volunteering here, or here's us with a big check donating to this place. We were just at this event, this spot, this event. I think more businesses would benefit by posting earlier and being the inviter, being somebody who is promoting this thing coming up. So if it's a local charity that you're involved with, or even a national charity, invite other people to join in. Obviously that charity, that organization is doing stuff on their social media to promote it, most likely. So then you have the opportunity to share that post and say, we'll be there. You should be too. We're super passionate about this, that kind of thing. And being involved at that level, and maybe even taking the time, if you've got an email list that you're sending regular updates to, take the time to send them an email to your list and just say, hey, a break from our usual email newsletter here. We just want to let you know that this event is coming up. We're planning on being there. Right. It's really close to our hearts, and anybody who wants to participate, this is how you get involved.
Join us there. Yeah, man, just inviting the community to do stuff with you rather than just capturing it. Still capture it, right? Still do all those things and create the highlight video afterwards.
Absolutely.
But like, invite the people who are doing business with you into some of the things that are really meaningful to you as a business owner.
Yeah.
That's so good. At Castle, we were involved with it was a tricycle race that Lancaster does. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's all these local businesses who show up once a year and they have this trike race between teams. And that was something where
I don't know what a trike. I'm
tricycle,
imagining
like a kid's tricycle.
Oh, okay.
Like literally adults.
I was imagining a big wheel.
No, like adults. There's like a 20-foot like raceway, and you have to have X amount of team members to qualify. You pay to get in.
Adults are sitting on children tricycles.
You get to choose your own tricycle, so everybody can show up with like some people will go to Walmart because the Walmart brand has like the specific like faster wheels or whatever. Some people will show up in like a little Tykes.
Gotcha.
Trike, whatever. But it's literally like this little 20-foot, 30-foot way.
Yeah.
And you essentially have to trike across it, give your tricycle to the next person.
Relay.
And it's a relay.
Nice.
And you keep versing teams until someone wins. It's a whole bracket. It's super intense. And we did that every year. And I just remember that was like a cool opportunity to invite people in to be like, hey, because you could watch. There would be people who would just come to watch teams go at it. And there was like donations and different things, but it was always better because business owners were allowing their teams to spend the time to do that, obviously, but like people showed up to watch and being engaged and also gave, and there was like free waters and drinks or whatever. Very cool. It was really chill. But stuff like that, there's tons of stuff happening in your community, so get involved.
Yeah, that
is less obvious to your point. I think that's not something that comes to mind first when you think of how can I build trust.
Yeah. So those are the big things. Do good work. Make sure that not only are you doing good work, but that your expectations are being set, that you're setting expectations for clients, that you are meeting those, even exceeding those by adding additional value. Get reviews and case studies. Post those on social media. That's a great way to stay relevant. That's not too, it's not too salesy. A lot of times, like, we kind of default in social media. It's so easy just to default to, like, did you know we do this? Like, how many times have you seen that post? Yeah. Like, did you know? Yeah. It's like, oh, wow, fascinating. But it's a big difference if it's, hey, that you post a review that you just got and you say, thanks, Sarah, for the great review. And it's, somebody who had, had bad experiences with their dental office in the past, but was just blown away at how modern and kind and etc. This dental experience was. Those go a long way.
Sure do. Yeah. I think also integrating like your story, the story of your company can be integrated into everything. I know we talked about that a little bit when it comes to knowing you, right? Like, but when it comes to trust, you can always come back to the aspects of like how you guys came to be, your history, your heritage, all those things that come with your business. Find ways to integrate that in your communications with your client. So I can't think of an example right off the top of my head, but like if you're emailing something, like just finding those little moments to share that stuff, because it is a reminder. Sometimes you get so integrated or inundated with the here and now. And your clients obviously are not thinking about your story. But if you incorporated your story, it does like, I don't know, it just does this thing where it's like out of body experience or not out of body, but we're able to just, it gives perspective, and again, I'm going to draw from my own experiences. When I worked at Castle, that's a third generation business owners, right? So it was like Gary and then Dale Castle and then his father Amos Castle, who started hand painting lettering on vehicles. So we would share that. Like I remember Gary would just like, he'd be like, yeah, man, this is the way Amos would have did it, and like little things like that. And all of a sudden we're having this conversation and you're still talking, but in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, like Amos, like this is, we're like furthering the mission of a 3 generations ago. And like, so
what if your business isn't 3 generations though?
But I think then you create those things today. Like we talked about that when we had the whole conversation about heritage and all that kind of stuff with your business. But even if you're a first generation business, you were established. Like people will look back and say, what did you do?
Sure.
Right? How did you do it? And maybe you could even say that, like that they said like, hey, I want the future of this business to look back and say that group of people did it this way, so we're gonna do it that way too.
Yeah.
I just think if you can, any little bits of that you can just pass by the client, put in front of the client, it doesn't have to be overwhelming. Here's our story,
Right.
But if you can incorporate that into the value and to what they're needing, then I think that's really, really powerful.
So I think your story will change over time.
Over time, yeah.
And so, it's cool. It's really cool to have businesses that have been around a long time and they've got heritage, they've got authenticity, they've got tradition.
Yeah.
But, there's potentially cons to working with that business too, which is a doorway for newer businesses. The cons for working with an older business is maybe they're a little set in their ways. Maybe they're a little old fashioned. Maybe they're not up on the latest technology, those types of things. And that opens the doors for other businesses to go, hey, I worked in this industry for X number of years and I saw an opportunity. I realized that there was, nobody doing it quite this way, and this world needs this, and that's why I got passionate about and so I started my own company. And so your story is going, hey, the reason we're new is, or the benefit to us being new is that we're looking at it a different way. And I think I've seen that work in my own business. We design websites and we build on newer platforms that are faster and more streamlined and don't require the same level of like heavy coding that like older platforms like WordPress often require. And they don't have like tons of plugins and layers. And so we've actually been able to like use that as a selling point where it's like, hey, this is actually kind of the future.
Yeah.
Like you're investing in something that's newer and better. And some people just don't buy it. They want the old reliable thing, and that's fine.
That's fine.
That's what they want. They want but over time that story will change. Like one day you will be the person that's got the heritage and the tradition, and
you can still we talked about that, but you can still innovate as that person, right? So it's it's still perception. Like you can
I know enough about the example you use, Castle, to know that there's not a lack of up to date. They're not. They're up to date. They're good to go. They're doing.
You're
great
kind
work.
of giving to the person who doesn't have
this is a story that we're telling. This is when we look at storytelling and marketing too, is you want to avoid being the hero in the story.
Right.
You're the guide. Yeah. So in this, your customer is the hero in their own story, and you're the person that's coming into their story and saying, "Let me help you get through this journey that you're on," which is. If you want to use the Star Wars example, it's Luke Skywalker needs Obi-Wan Kenobi to be able to learn the Force and ultimately trust in the Force to blow up the Death Star. That's his journey. And in the same way, customers need you to help them get to where they want to be.
Right.
To get to that future success. So you enter into their story, and the story that you tell about you needs to be focused ultimately on how this makes their life better. Because so many companies get wrapped up in their story
and themselves.
Yeah, it's just
I think
me.
The entirety of my career so far as an independent, like I'm on my own, has been largely the language and messaging that I've used up until now has been largely wrapped around myself. That's just like me being brutally honest and like having the self-awareness to look back and be like, I have not done a good job at being the guide for people. I've always just been the hero that people still needed. Like people would still come to me for work, but ultimately, like that's not what I want. And that's not what's beneficial. It's like, I need to be the guide. I think you and I both follow someone on social media who talks a lot about communications. We've talked about him before, who talks a lot about like public speaking and stuff. The one dude that
I know who you
like came across or whatever, and I was like, hey, me too. I forget his name.
I don't know, but I recently was watching one of those things. He used to be a magician, which makes so much sense. Right. I was like, how did this guy get so much charisma? Yeah. Oh, he was a magician.
When you hear him talking and then he says he used to be a magician, you're like, oh, I can hear him being a magician, Yeah. But he had this video and it was about saying yes and instead of yes but. And when someone, I'm going to draw the connection to your history and all that kind of stuff. If people ever say, how, like, you gave the example of someone saying, yeah, we're the new guys, right? We're the new kids on the block, but here's why. And because we saw an opportunity, yada, yada. If someone were to ever question that, saying yes and versus yes but is like, I know this is a bit tactical, but yes but implies defensiveness. Yes, but we are the new guys on the block, but hear me out, right? Like, or yes, but we're doing it this way. It sounds defensive. But if you say yes, and it's because we saw this amazing opportunity in the marketplace to do things faster. And we know that if we can do things faster, we can get the product to you sooner. And if you have the product sooner, you can hit the ground and the marketplace faster, which helps you win faster. And so therefore we're actually more expensive. Yeah. Like whatever conclusion you want to draw. But I wanted to share that practical tip. It was meaningful to me. Yes and versus yes but. And I was like, man, it's so true. Like, yes but instantly sounds defensive, kind of. And so as you kind of think about building trust, a lot of that is communication too. So I felt like I was kind of relevant. But
no, that makes a lot of sense to me.
I love the conversation around trust, man. There's no shortcuts in it. You just have to do do what you say you're gonna do. And like, there's a million ways to talk about it and angles to come at it. But at the core of building trust is just like, are you the same person you are in every room? Can you do what you say you're going to do in the way you say you're going to do it? And like you said, it could be different for every company, but
there are things you can do there are things.
No, every time we talk, we're just going to be like super hyper aware of what we're saying.
There are things you can do to amplify
100%
the work you've already done.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's where marketing and building a brand comes into place. And that's why know you, like you, trust you comes into play. You have to be active in helping more people know you exist.
Right.
You have to be cognizant of they're going to review your materials, whether that's your website, your brochure, your yard sign, your truck, and they're going to decide whether they like you or not. And that doesn't mean like, oh, are they nice or not? That might be part of the conversation, but probably it's more about like, do their services line up with what I need? Right. And do they seem like there's somebody that's like in my price point? And, so do they like you, and then of course, do they trust you, which is what we just talked about. Yeah. And in all of those ways, you have to be active and you have to be purposeful in putting out content, putting out great design and messaging that supports those three things. We talked about it before as there's a chasm between where your potential customer is and where you want them to be, which is buying from you. And there's three big steps they have to take to get over that chasm. You can look at it as three big pillars or stepping stones to get across that chasm. And the more time you spend on know you, the first step, the bigger that landing spot is for them. Yeah. Maybe it goes from them having to take a big jump to even know you exist to just a small step. Right. They just got to walk outside because you've got so much advertising going on, Exactly. And then the same for like you. Like, are you giving them reasons to like you and then trust you? And making those platforms bigger so that this person who is on one side of the chasm can easily navigate to the other side, which is now they're ready to buy from you. Yeah. Because they know you, they like you, and they trust you. Yeah.
You're eliminating hesitation. The more time you spend, making that platform or landing space bigger on each of those categories, know, like, trust, you're creating you're taking away hesitation from them to make that jump, right? So the more time you invest into it, the more your client, or the less your client has to jump, So your work is very intentional, and it allows them to make a really well and what would for them feel like a safe risk, a safe bet, because I trust that this person's going to do what they say they're going to do. I wouldn't even say risk, Ideally, it doesn't feel like a risk to them at all. It just feels like they're about to level up, and it feels like an investment that's worthwhile.
Exactly.
So I love it.
All right, man. That felt pretty good.
Yeah.
So now we're going to get to the end of the podcast. This is the deep end. This is the last thing. And I didn't tell you what I'm about to say, but this is the last episode of season 0 of the Brand Nerd podcast.
What? Dang, this is live reaction, man.
Yeah, this is the end.
Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
That's pretty good.
I mean,
we're not in a very acoustic room, but
well, I mean that
your boy can sing.
That theme, if you do that long enough, I'll probably just start crying.
I know, dude. Oh man.
Anyways,
all right.
That was.
I just feel peaceful when I hear that music, and I'm like,
yeah.
I should feel this way, when I'm listening to worship music, or if I. but sometimes it's just I just need that hit of the Shire.
Yep.
And it just does it for me,
man.
In
your life. So this is what that means. It's the end of season 0. We're still going to be podcasting going forward, but it's going to be under a new name. It's going to be the Local Service Brand Podcast. The Brand Nerd Podcast is not going away, but it is also not staying. It's not going to be as regularly updated.
Yeah.
So the good news is that, all the socials, YouTube, everything, you don't have to change anything. You will, if you're listening to on a podcast feed, you will have to subscribe to a new podcast feed. And we'll make those details very clear.
As easy as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we'll put up an episode, because I know there's people that don't make it to the end of the episode. We'll put up an episode that specifically points you to the new one next week. Or actually, I don't know for sure that it's next week. We have to talk about that. But actually, that literally what I want to do now that you are in on the secret.
Oh my gosh, I feel like I'm a little emotional, to be honest with you. I just feel like it's just been season 0 for 19 episodes, and 19 episodes. Yeah, man, I don't know. Shout out to everybody listening, man.
Yeah, I want to talk to you a little bit about go ahead. I want to talk to you a little bit about what is next, and I mean, people can kind of listen in on a little bit of a strategy session as we launch this next thing. So, I think I already mentioned this, but all the socials will stay Brand Nerd. I need to start acquiring handles around. I would like the handles to be Local Service Brand or something like that. I told you already, I think I own localservicebrand.com, so that won't be a problem.
Yeah.
We don't even have to do Local Service Brand podcast or anything. We just own straight up localservicebrand.com. I think the published schedule will be pretty similar, but I want to be a lot more strict about this is when we put up videos. And so I think new pods will still be on Tuesdays. I don't see why not. I mean, I thought about Monday or Friday as well, just because those are beginning of the week, end of the week.
Yeah.
There's kind of this thing. A lot of people do podcasts on Tuesday mornings, I think, because Mondays are, I don't know, I guess Mondays are people's getting into the swing of thing day.
Get into the swing of things. It's busy. It's usually high meetings. People want to check in before the week. Yeah.
I like Monday. I listen to a lot of podcasts on Mondays, so it's actually my preferred podcast day. So I guess I'm just weird.
Yeah.
It gets me into the mood, I guess. But anyways, I think we'll keep it on Tuesdays. I also want to do 2 videos a week, whether those are clips or other things that'll go up on, and when I say clips, I mean something between 4 and 12 minutes.
Yeah.
That'll go up on all the social medias. And I want to, one thing that will change is have a lot more intentional LinkedIn strategy, since this is a business focused podcast. It's a branding podcast. Our LinkedIn strategy has been mostly non-existent. So this will give an opportunity to really kind of jump into that and build some authority in a space on there.
It will be huge. And I love LinkedIn because you can use a lot of different types of content have proven to be effective. You can do short form video because you're always trying to stop the scroll, right, for people. And so when you throw up a short video, it does stop the scroll because everybody largely is text based. So if you have a nice mix of like posting regular, just straight up posts that add value, and then you could have like a graphic post perhaps, and then like every once in a while throw on like a video or something. Yeah, I do short stuff on LinkedIn like very seldomly, but it always does pretty well. This is all very exciting though. I think LinkedIn will be awesome.
Yeah. And so this podcast, I want to bring on a lot more guests. The Brand Nerd podcast, I kept talking about doing guests, but I kind of held off on it because I wanted to make sure that we had a defined audience, a defined, I just wanted to make sure that the guests know who they're talking to.
Yeah.
And I think Brand Nerd podcast, we started to get there, but now it's going to be super clear that this is for local service brands. And so guests will know that coming in, they can be a part of that universe.
Yeah. I think it's worth noting that we, sort of put our money where our mouth is in this practice of testing, right? Like research and development. Season 0 has been largely that.
Yeah.
Trying things and then figuring out what our niche is, figuring out who we're speaking to. So in the episode where you're talking about like niching down versus like not niching down, or like knowing, I forget the like upstream, downstream thing. I kind of, we don't need to hash that out, but that was season 0 for us.
Yeah.
Coming to all these conclusions that before when we started, we didn't have any of these.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely some instincts. I'm not a quick mover, like in terms of like when I have an idea, I like to let it simmer. I like to really explore it, do some research. Like that is my MO, my mode of operation. There's people that are like, let's just jump into 17 different things. Every new shiny object they see, they start on it. And then, some people can do that and function well. Yeah. I would get burnt out almost immediately.
Yeah.
So this is the way that I like to do things, make sure that it's the right way. In doing that, we are going to need new podcast art. We are going to need new music. Like I think, because the Brand Nerd podcast still exists. Right. I want that to be known, but it's gonna live. It's gonna be its own thing. At least for now, it's not going to be super regimented. Yeah. And then it's going to need to be. So this will need its own music trailer, and then build up a guest list and start rocking with that. Some of the things that I, did on the Brand Nerd podcast, like Nerd News, were really more for me because it's stuff I like talking about, and that type of stuff will not be as prevalent, and so maybe it needs a place to live, like on the Brand Nerd podcast, if we want to do something like that on the regular and talk about stuff that's a little bit more nerd leans more into the nerdy, and less to the practical, local service business owner world. But yeah, that's the plan.
How did you arrive on that clarity? Like, what brought you to saying this is the last episode, this is where we're going? I mean, we've processed it a lot, both slightly on camera, a lot off camera. So what do you feel like still is at this point? You're like, all right, I'm ready. And
I said, I like to take my time with things, but I think it was just a matter of if I can't poke holes in it anymore, like if I'm out of reasons to not do it, then I have to move, and that's kind of where it's at. Is like, well, this is just delaying the inevitable at this point, and it was more about how do we do this tactically. It was more about, does everything become local service brand? Does everything disappear? Brand Nerd is no more, is like the one extreme. The other extreme is, do we start a whole separate thing that is local service brand, and then we run an agency and a thing in parallel? This is kind of the best of both worlds in saying that our content is going to be very focused around this local service brand idea. Brand Nerd, the agency, still exists to help companies that are in this spot, and they're very closely tied in that, like the way I imagine like socials being the handle being local service brand, and the name being BrandNerd, and then the description being very local service brand heavy.
Yeah.
Like talking about that.
It's really, I think it's just necessary, man. There's such a need for practical brand marketing conversation and sort of these blue collar, not always blue collar, but sometimes largely blue collar service providers. And then there's always kind of those other types of people that are maybe a bit more high, they're talking to
There's a lot of gurus out there that are kind of like the over promisers.
Yeah.
And
There's always
I really don't want to be that.
Yeah. Like there's a guy on the YouTube ad that's like, click right now to start tripling your leads or
No.
No.
And I think there's businesses that's the way they want to approach it, and that's fine. That's just not our customer. If their whole existence is just I want any and all leads. I don't want to spend any time building out any sort of identity and name for myself. I just want to get as many people picking up the phone as possible. Then there's people that are already going to promise you that. I don't know if they're going to deliver or not, but they're going to promise you that. I sit on a lot of discovery calls where people are like, yeah, we've been working with this ad agency, like digital ad agency, and we just don't know if it doesn't seem like it's working that well. Right. But they act like they're getting us all these leads, but they're not very good. And it's that's just what I hear on a regular basis. I'm sure there are some good ones too, but for us, it's how do you build something organically? How do you get that like hockey stick effect? Where things, because you're building, things really start to take off, versus as soon as you turn off your ad campaign, your leads go away.
Right.
That's not intriguing to me. That's not how you build a business that sustains over a long period of time.
Yeah. Dude, I'm stoked.
Cool.
That came out of left field. Live reaction. Anything else you have to tell me?
Well, I mean, the great thing is we can do some really clickbaity like artwork and stuff on this episode. Like, this is the end.
Yes.
Never again.
That will be the artwork. Goodbye for now.
No, just, I'm retiring, or I'm people.
Man fires other man. Man fires employee live on podcast. All right. Well, guys, thank you. I feel like this is like senior year in high school and sign my yearbook vibes,
You're getting way too emotional about this. Calm down, Pete.
But I'm stoked, man. Yeah, I'm stoked. I really am excited. I thank you for putting all the work that you did into like bringing that clarity. And I'm excited to like dive into the topic we've already been talking about, but now to have all the messaging and all the brand around it to be relevant to the people we're talking to. Because that was the biggest disconnect. We all have been talking to local service providers, but the brand, the music, like none of the vibes were necessarily like clearly speaking to that person. Now we can do that. And so now we have the lanes. It's like local service brand, BrandNerd. And we know exactly what those two are and the distinctions between those two, which is good. That's what we needed to do. So, but it was something that only you could have said. It was something that only you could have put the green light on. Like I can throw away ideas, Devin can throw ideas at you all day, but at the end of the day, it's like, it's your ship to sail. So it's like, now we can go and dive into the deep end with this, which is great. Season 0, it's been real. I'm not going to say stay curious. Last week I got reprimanded for trying to say stay curious. So
yeah, you just said it twice. Dang it. Anyways, if you made it to the deep end here, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you at some point in the near future, but also pay attention for the new podcast, Local Service Brands, hitting the shelf near you soon. I believe it'll be 2 weeks from now.
Okay. We're going to have a week off.
Yeah. Well,
vacation.
We'll probably start promoting it before that, but
LSB.
Appreciate you. Stay curious.
If you enjoyed this BrandNerd podcast, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode.